Thursday evening, Judith and I went to see the movie Wonder Woman. I'm not generally a fan of comic book superhero movies, too much violence and the characters are too broadly drawn, but I felt compelled to see this one. Part of it was knowing that I would be reflecting on the story of Deborah this evening, that ancient Israelite prophetess and judge who helped lead the people into battle against the Canaanites. Part of it was that all of my friends who are women who've seen the movie have told me, you have to go see this movie, man. Deborah was not exactly a superhero, but like Diana Prince, the Wonder Woman character, she exhibited bravery and battle presence, a kind of no fear, I'll go with you and ahead of you into battle presence. That comic books and Bible passages don't typically associate with female gender identity. It's not that women aren't brave in the Bible and in comic strips for that matter. It's just that scripture passages and action movies tend to consign their bravery to quieter but no less important things like Mary saying yes to bearing God into the world, or Rahab, who we'll talk about next week, hiding the Israelite spies, or the Hebrew midwives defying Pharaoh's orders, or the Syro-Phoenician woman boldly challenging Jesus to heal her child too, or for that matter, the women being present at Jesus' crucifixion when all the male disciples have turned tail and run away. There are plenty of examples of women being brave in the Bible, just not so many examples of them going with men to the front lines of the battle. That's what makes Deborah sort of unique among Israelite women. She is brave in battle. I have a number of female clergy colleagues who have written and spoken about how moved they were by the movie Wonder Woman to see this Amazon Diana Prince going toe-to-toe with the men, the World War I German soldiers, ready to take on even the war god Ares to end war forever, seeing it as her mission to engage in the struggle as a strong female presence. She doesn't take any guff from anybody. She's not relegated to the sidelines. She's not a damsel in distress. She is right in the thick of things and out in the lead. It's a marvelous scene in the movie where Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, is in the trenches of World War I with the British soldiers, right next to her male friend, the British spy, Steve Trevor. She is asking him why they don't engage the Germans across no man's land from them, and Steve Trevor responds, "This is no man's land, Diana. It means no man can cross it, all right? This battalion has been here for nearly a year, and they barely gained an inch, all right? Because on the other side, there are a bunch of Germans pointing machine guns at every square inch of this place. This is not something you can cross. It is not possible." Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, replies, "So what? So we do nothing?" When Trevor responds that they are doing something and they just can't save everyone in this war, that's not what they came to do, she tells him that's what she's going to do. And then Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, rushes out of the trenches with her shield and her armbands deflecting bullets coming at her, using her golden whip and her sword to take down her enemies on her way to get past them into the German high command, an eventual face-to-face battle with Ares. When Diana goes first, when she takes the lead, Steve Trevor and the rest of the men pour out of the trenches behind her. I couldn't help but think of the prophetess and judge Deborah when I watched that scene, because she, not Barak the Israelite general, but Deborah the prophetess and judge, is the one who demonstrates what it means to be brave in that passage. Deborah is the one who tells Barak to go into battle, and when he protests that he won't go unless she goes with him, which is an echo, by the way, of Moses telling the same thing to God in the book of Exodus, she does. She goes with him. She She goes ahead of the people to the front lines of the battle. She goes to fight the power that had kept them oppressed for 20 years. Now, how did they get in that pickle to begin with? As the book of Judges tells it, in typical Deuteronomic fashion, that the people of Israel had done evil in the sight of the Lord, so God had handed them over to King Jabin of Canaan for 20 years, and they needed someone to deliver them, so they cried out to God, and God sent them a leader. Now, a quick aside here, when I say typical Deuteronomic fashion, and maybe some of your eyes glazed over when I said that, what I mean is that from the book of Joshua through the book of 2 Kings, the one who compiles the narrative of Israel's history casts it in a theological framework. There's a pattern that plays out over and over again. The people of God cry out for deliverance. A strong leader helps them overcome their enemies. Things go well for them for a time. Then they begin to falter and be disobedient to God. And then a new foreign power overtakes them. And after a period of oppression, they turn to God again. And God sends a leader, and the pattern repeats itself again and again. They forget God. They're vanquished. They return again to God. God sends a leader over and over. Now, there is a value in that kind of theological framework because it names our tendency as individuals and as groups to forget God's grace and provision, to wander away from God's guidance, to face consequences, only to turn again to God and receive God's help. And sometimes that's the way it works. There's a value to that kind of theological framework. Sometimes that's the way it works. Sometimes you do good and you get good, and sometimes you do bad and you get beat. That's not the way it always happens, right? See, the danger in that kind of theological approach is that it can lead to victim blaming. If bad things happen to you, well, then you must have done something to deserve that. And that's certainly not always the case. We have too many people at a manual who face too much hardship to believe that that is always true. It is always the case that if you do bad, bad things happen. If you do good, good things happen. Sometimes you're perfectly good and bad things happen. Not every hardship that befalls a person or people is a consequence of what they've done or left undone. Sometimes bad things happen to people who've done nothing to deserve those bad things. History, our personal history, our national history, our world history, our communal history is not Deuteronomic. Not all the time, anyway. However, when hard times come, when we feel overwhelmed by life's circumstances, when we don't know what to do or where to turn, what we need is God's help. That's good theology. And in my experience, God's help most often takes the form of a human being or human beings who are willing to be brave and present with us. We need a Deborah. We need a Diana. They don't need to be superheroes, but we need someone when we're hurting to be brave and present with us. I'm talking about those way beyond military warfare, though there are times when such warfare feels as if it's necessary. Those of you who've been in battles know the importance of having someone with skin on to go with you into those military situations. But I'm not really talking about that. What we all need in this world are Deborahs who are willing to go with us into the battles of life, the struggles against addiction or injustice, physical or mental illness, hatred and fear. It's easy to demonize and make enemies of other human beings. But the real battle of life is the battle to keep loving and living and serving and hoping when we've seen the best and the worst, both the terrible things people can do to each other in the name of hatred and fear, and the lengths they'll go to for love. The real battle of life is to keep trusting the message of Jesus that only love can save the world. And to stay and fight and give for the world that we know can be. It's the real battle of life. We all need Deborahs. We all need to be Deborahs in that battle. A Deborah like that will take you to chemo. She'll let you cry on your shoulder. She'll give you a pep talk. She'll remind you that no matter what happens, no matter what, you are not going into this particular challenge in your life alone. A Deborah like that will go with you to a 12-step meeting and introduce you to other people who are up against the same sort of compulsion that you face. She'll tell you that they are people just like her. A Deborah like that will take up the fight for the rights and safety of others, not just themselves, by standing alongside those who seem to forever get the short end of the stick and the raw end of the deal. Deborah like that will be an advocate for justice and an embodiment of mercy and an instrument of peace. Deborah like that will tell a timid, scared companion like the Israelite general Barak that in the final analysis, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. What helps us to be Deborahs? That's my question. What helps us to be Deborahs? Here's a stab at an answer. Do you know what the word Deborah means? Do you know what it literally means? It literally means bee. Bee, like the buzzing insect that lives in a hive and pollinates flowers and helps produce sweet honey. Deborah means bee. You can look it up, I promise. That's what it means. If you want to be a Deborah, if you need a Deborah, remember that. What do we know about bees? Bees function best when they're in community with each other, working together for the good of the hive. By working for the good of the hive, they bring blessing to the world around them. Honeybees, by the way, are responsible for 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we ingest as human beings, so we better take care of them. Maurice Metterling says if the bee disappeared off the face of the earth, human beings would have only 4 years left to live. We need bees. Bees are important. They pollinate. They go out and touch other living things and help them to thrive. They produce honey. Just someone reminded me this morning, never goes bad. Bees have a queen around whom the community gathers. And the queen gives birth to more and more workers. For the ancient Israelite community, that queen, for a certain period of time, was a woman named Deborah, bee, who bravely went before her people into battle. Nowhere in Scripture does it say that Deborah was a biological mother. Ordinarily in Scripture, at least to this point in the Old Testament, a woman had some sort of significance because she gave birth to a child, but there's no mention of Deborah having a biological child. But in her song, in chapter 5, Deborah calls herself a mother in Israel. I think she calls herself that because her own bravery and presence helped bring courage to birth in the hearts and lives of a whole host of people in Israel. People who followed her in battle. What better place to learn about bravery and presence than in the hive of the community of faith? Do you know Sue Monk Kidd's lovely novel, The Secret Life of Bees? In that book, a 14-year-old white girl named Lily runs away from her home and her abusive father and comes to live with a group of African-American sisters who keep bees. Before too long, she's introduced to their work by the sister in charge, whose name is August. All of the sisters have month names. Here's Lily's account of what August taught her about bees. I hadn't been out to the hives before, so to start off, she gave me a lesson in what she called bee yard etiquette. She reminded me that the world was really one bee yard. The same rules work fine in both places. Don't be afraid, as no life-giving bee wants to sting you. Still, don't be stupid. Wear long sleeves and pants. Don't swat. Don't even think about swatting. If you feel angry, whistle. Anger agitates, while whistling melts a bee's temper. Act like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. Above all, send the bees love. Every little